Hey, welcome back, YouTubers. This is Daniel Strong with lesson, I believe, 11 in our basic series. Today we're going to talk about this workbook, active sheet, workbooks, all these things that, different terms of how you can tell Excel which workbook to switch to. Let's say you had multiple ones open, or if you created a new one, that would of course be a secondary workbook that's open. You want to be able to intuitively switch between them. Well, you don't want to have to do it. You want to teach Excel to do it with VBA, to do all these, hundreds or thousands or just a few lines of code, perhaps, switching back and forth and doing something. For example, I have one thing where I generate a report for for say 1 month or one type, and then I export that. I copy that over to a fresh, clean worksheet or workbook, and then I will have it run the second criteria. Let's say, if we had a Dallas report, it would run that and then put it in a tab and name that tab Dallas on the new workbook, and then it would switch back over to this workbook, the original workbook, run the new report, and then it would take that sheet and copy it again to the same the other workbook. So we're gonna do an in-depth study on that. So let's get started. This might be a two-part video. I don't know how long this will take, but this is good stuff. Okay. So I've already begun here. What we're going to do in a second is we're going to open up a new workbook and start switching back and forth with our macro. So let's get started. First things first, what is this workbook? We've used it before when we say this workbook.sheets, and then we say the name of a sheet or something like this. This workbook is an object in Excel that tells Excel that the workbook that you started with, or the one that actually has the codes in it, is the one that you might want to switch to, or you might want to do something with. Even if Excel is currently focused on one of several workbooks, if you said this workbook.activate, then it would immediately switch over to the original workbook and do some stuff in there. So we're going to go ahead and do an experiment with that. Let's say we'll add a new workbook. Here's how you do that. Let's see here. I believe it's workbooks.add. Well, if I could spell it'd be fantastic. Workbooks.add. Simple as that. You want to add a new workbook? Bam. Let's try this. Let's F8 through. Remember, F8 is debugging. One line at a time. F8, F8. Okay, now we're in the procedure called workbook stuff. And the first line is about to run. F8, workbooks.add. So you can see up here, book 1 has just been added. Okay, so now you can see that clearly we're on the workbook called book 1. But what if I hit F8? What it'll tell Excel to do is to go to the original workbook that originated all the codes here and activate that. Set the focus on that. Let's hit F8 and see what happens. Sure enough, we've got our originating workbook. So let's clear that out. I'm going to go ahead and close out the new workbook. Let's do that again. Only this time, I'm going to hit F8, F8, adds a new workbook. You notice this one's called book 2. For some reason, Excel just keeps adding. Even if you've closed out book 1, it's going to call this one book 2, and so on and so forth until you, I think, close out all instances of Excel, maybe. At any rate, here's what we're going to do this time. We're going to set a variable just to capture the name of the workbook so we can switch back to it in a second. This is pretty cool. Okay, we'll say, what are we going to call it? We'll just say workbook name, WB name. That's not anything native to Excel. That's just a random name I just made up for a variable. WB name equals active workbook dot name. So we want to get the active workbook dot name And if we hover over it, we see that it's book 2. But let's backtrack a little bit. See, their variable is not set. It should be empty right now. But if I hit F8, WB name equals book 2. So we can save that for later. Check this out. I'm going to hit F8. We're going to switch back to our originating workbook. This workbook.activate. But down here, we'll go back. We can go back to the new workbook. How do you do that? With the Workbooks object. I know it's a lot to take in. Check this video out, rewind it, watch it a few times. You need to memorize this. This is awesome. So Workbooks. And instead of saying book 2 in quotation marks, or instead of saying that Workbooks book 2 dot activate, you can take all this in quotes out and use our variable WB name up here, because if you click away and then you click back, you see that book 2 is already in quotes. It's already a text. So we're going to open up Workbooks WB name, which means Workbooks book 2 activate. We want to activate the other worksheet or workbook. So if I hit F8, it switched back to book 2, and we could go on all day. This workbook.activate, and so we can switch back and forth between book 2 and the originating workbook. Let's see what else we have here. Active workbook.name, we used active sheet. Active sheet is kind of the same thing. If you did active sheet.name, in this case it would be in quotes. It would say workbook studies, end quote. So you can use that with sheets. Also, like if we did that, that would be whatever sheet is active at that stage in the macro. So if I had a different one selected, it would take the name of that if we did active sheet.name. So that is how we use these. We'll do more in the next video. Thanks for watching.